Good afternoon, doctor. And in our group, there are two people. My name is Li Hongyu, and the other groupmate is Zhang Zheyuan. And we are going to make a presentation about English language variation in Zimbabwe and Russia. And I'm responsible for the first two parts, and he is responsible for the other parts. Firstly, let's have a quick look about the history of English in these two countries. And the Zimbabwe is a landlocked country in the central part of southern Africa, and here are the neighbors countries around Zimbabwe. And it is the former Anglophone colony of British, and here is the population, the major groups, and the smaller groups. And how English has came to the Channel 2 in Zimbabwe? Well, the emergence of English in Zimbabwe is linked to the British Empire's colonial growth, supported by the British South Africa Company, namely BSAC. And subsequent to this acquisition, Rose obtained the land of the British South Africa Company in 1889. Consequently, this led to the official creation of the colonial state, Rhodesia, in 1895. Guided by this company, British colonial officials started exerting influence over the area, setting the stage for the widespread use and the introduction of English. And through this establishment of colonial powers and instructions, they aided in spreading English as the primary language for administration, education, and trade in the newly established region. And the spread of English in Zimbabwe is closely linked to the country's turbulent past, especially highlighted by the commencement of decolonization in the early 1960s. And during this era, there was an upsurge in local extremism, labor strikes, and riots, which ultimately intensified into a complete civil war by 1972. And at first, English was the primary language used by colonial oppressors, mainly by white settler farmers. Yet, with Zimbabwe's advancement during this post-colonial period, the English language experienced a significant change. So, to sum up, English in Zimbabwe has a colonial legacy dating back to the late 19th century when the British established control over the region, then known as Rhodesia. English was introduced as the language of administration, education, and commerce. Despite the country's independence in 1980, English retained its status as the official language due to its role as a unifying language among Zimbabwe's diverse ethnic groups. And now it's time for looking at the history of English in Russia. English in Russia has a relatively recent history compared to the other countries where English is widely spoken. The presence of English in Russia can be traced back to the late 19th and the early 20th century, when it began to be taught as a foreign language in schools and universities. During the Soviet era, the study of English was encouraged as a means to access Western literature, science, and culture. Okay, the second part is the present status of English usage in these two countries. Firstly, let's look at the role of English today in Zimbabwe. Well, in Zimbabwe, English holds the status of the official language adopted as the second language by most Black Zimbabweans and as a primary language by a smaller group of Zimbabwean whites, Indians, and people of mixed race. This serves as the main instructional medium from the fourth grade to the universal level. Additionally, in formal settings such as global and local business transactions, governmental operations, legislative activities, religious rituals, advertising, and so on, English is the primary language. However, there are also concerns about the disparities in English language proficiency between the urban and the rural areas, as well as among different socio-economic groups. I have divided four parts of the English as the official language. The first part is the educational realm. While the national constitutions of policy explicitly sectioned the employment of English. And furthermore, education at the tertiary level predominantly occurs in English, with the exception of African languages departments. And the second part is for the law realm. The Constitution of Zimbabwe, in its Chapter 8, Sections 177 to 179, mandates that all legal courts judges, barring the customary court, must have received training in Roman Dutch law or in nation where English is officially recognized. Additionally, defendants or any involved party in legal cases lacking English proficiency are eligible for interpreter service. The second part is for the media realm. Zimbabwe's media scene exhibits a significant difference in how indigenous languages are represented versus English. Out of over 15 printed newspapers nationwide. On the other hand, most English language newspapers are daily newspapers, suggesting a widespread presence of English language publications. And the same pattern is observable in digital media, with most TV and radio channels, along with internet news portals. And Zimbabwe's 4 public radio stations also use English as the official languages. Moreover, private broadcasters such as these four broadcasters primarily transmit in English. However, the disparity in language usage within Zimbabwe's media sector highlights the predominance of English as the main language of communication. And the last part is in the business realm. The tendency for formality highlights the widespread adoption of English in business, emphasizing the importance of professional conduct and clear communication. Although indigenous languages are employed in certain situations, English is usually the standard communication medium in business environments. Okay, now let's look at the Englishization in Russian. Russian, being Russia's only official language, has been greatly influenced by English, leading to the significant shifts in multiple linguistic areas. And the most noticeable aspects of Anglicization include the lexicon of computers, business terms, and terms associated with popular music. Terms like computer, business, and music frequently appear in their English versions within Russian conversations. Additionally, the impact of English has permeated Russian through various linguistic borrowings, resulting in the integration of Asian terms with pronunciations akin to English, such as the Japanese words sushi, samashi, shiitake, have smoothly merged into the Russian vocabulary influenced by the English. And this occurrence underscores the evolving dynamics of language interaction and the potential evolution of the linguistic borrowings in action to worldwide trends and the cultural interchange. And the observed syntactic structures demonstrate the integration of English syntactic norms into Russian conversations. Additionally, an examination of grammar uncovers an increasing trend in the analysis of Russian morphology, which is also shaped by English. And under the umbrella of Channel 4 globalization, Russia adopts English as its universal language. Within the country, the language scene reflects patterns observed in other countries, where English is more prevalent in education than other languages. Okay, now next 2 parts is for my group mates.
My name is Zhang Zheyuan. I will introduce linguistic feature. Firstly, let's look at Zimbabwean English. Part 1 is vowel, how to deal with diphthongs. Native speakers Shona simplified complex English vowels. So there are two ways to deal with diphthongs. The first way is add to ya into the pronunciation to interrupt English diphthongs. The second way is they become diphthongs into monophthongs. So they use two ways. The reason is that the non-existence of diphthongs in Shona phonology. As a result, they prefer native vowel sounds to English diphthong in oral English. Part 2, vocabulary. Various distinct terms have evolved in unique application that are very different from conventional norms shaped by the original language. The following examples are the most frequently used unconventional methods. Mother is any elderly woman in Zimbabwean English. Father refers to any elderly woman in Zimbabwean English. Part 3 is grammar. The process of grammatical nativization in Zimbabwean English typically encompasses a variety of phenomena, such as first, create new words and expressions. Mask up, it means to wear mask. Wise up, indicating to be wise. Second, regional expression. Hashtag serves to denote the source or origin. Third, non-conventional allocation of verb tense in English. They use send as past tense, breaking the conventional English grammatical rules. Now let's look at Russian English. 1. On the lexical-semantic level, new expression has been formulated. Home task in Russian English, it means home assignment. To enter the university refers to be admitted to the university. Foreign passport interpreted as a passport for Russians traveling abroad. They have difference in prepositions. They become among into between, in change into to. In Russia, among and between both correspond to the same prepositions. They have difference in an internal translation from Russia to English. In English, realize means to achieve or to use. In Russian English, realize embody both meaning. So in Russia, realize means to achieve and to use. Second, on the pragmatic level, excessive verbal expression is very common and can result in complex misunderstandings in Russian English. For example, my primary area of expertise in this area is very ambiguity. It is easy to misunderstand. Directly in communication, in Russian English, open the door and please sit down, express comments and requests. There are many negative sentences in Russia. It's very direct and straightforward. For example, when we say, I don't think I can do that in English, but in Russian English, they often say, I think I can't do that. In conclusion, Zimbabwean English, we have introduced the historical origin, contemporary significance, linguistic feature. So native speaker of Shona make English localized in Zimbabwe. Russian English, we have discussed Russian English in a different way compared with Zimbabwean English. Russia has a shorter duration and more limited reach. Focus on the impact of English language culture on the Russian language culture and discuss unique feature of Russian English. They are very different in historical context, linguistic feature, and social status. They are very similar to both demonstrate the significance of English as a global language with diverse local manifestations. Okay, that's all. Thank you.